All right, so I finally found a phone holder slash wireless charger that I absolutely love. This 15-watt wireless fast charger from Ciro3D has definitely made a name for itself as the best motorcycle phone holder and wireless charger on the road today. Designed to fit any size smartphone, this QI-enabled cybercharger features waterproof electronics, easy to install wiring harness that connects directly to your 12-volt battery, easy one-handed operations, and 360 rotational adjustment, giving you that perfect portrait or landscape display. Mounting capabilities for this phone holder include Ciro's black or chrome perch mount, ball mirror mount, fairing mount, and bar clamp mount that comes in a variety of sizes. Now, my favorite feature about this whole setup is that the Ciro ball mount is compatible with all of Ciro's accessories. This includes Ciro's big ass cup holder, Ciro's action camera adapter for GoPro, and Ciro's standard smartphone and GPS holder. Alright, so in the box, you get the cybercharger, your wiring harness or your power cable, a perch mount. Now if you already have a perch mount, you can select without a perch mount, some mounting hardware, and the instructions. So the tools I use for this install: cable tie cutter, couple size ratchets, flathead screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, a picking tool, 2-inch extension, 1/2-inch socket, T27, T25, and a 3/16 hex bit. So first thing I'll do is remove the seat, the left saddlebag, and the left side cover. So I'm routing my wiring underneath the tank. Now you can route it underneath the center console, but if you plan on taking off your tank for future projects, I would just route it underneath the tank. So if you already have the Ciro premium phone holder, you can reuse that wiring harness. Now from here, I'm gonna disconnect the gray connector for the fuel tank, and I'm gonna purge the fuel line. So I have the gray connector disconnected. I made sure my bike is in neutral. Now I'll run it until it stalls. And then I'll operate the starter for an additional 3 seconds. Now I'll remove the main fuse. So when removing the tank, you have a vent hose on the left side. You just disconnect it right here. And on the right side, you have an overflow hose. You might have a couple zip ties. Just cut those and pull it out. Now I'll disconnect the fuel line. I'll pull up on this collar and it'll pop right off. And I'll hold a rag underneath in case any fuel comes out. Now to completely remove the tank, you have 2 screws in the back and 2 screws in the front, and I'm using a 1/2-inch socket. Now the 2 screws in the front have a plastic cover. You can just pop those off. Now that everything's disconnected, I'll remove the fuel tank. So now I'll remove the instrument bezel. I'll start off by removing the ignition switch cover. You have a little notch right here. There's a retention clip. You can use a screwdriver or a picking tool. Just push on that and it'll pop right out. And to remove the bezel, you have a Torx screw on each side, and I'm using a T25 with an extension. So to pull this instrument bezel off, I'll just turn my knob to the left, and when you do pull this off, you have a connector on the right, the left, and the center. And for the center connector, you can use a screwdriver or a picking tool. Now the right connector has a retention clip on the bottom. I'm just using a picking tool to pry up on that to get it off. Now you can take this cover off by cutting a couple zip ties and route your wiring underneath there, but I'm gonna route mine along the side. So I'll just pop this plastic piece off. Now this wiring is thin enough to route along here, right underneath these zip ties. Now when you're routing your wire, you want to provide yourself enough slack, whether you're doing a perch mount or a clamp mount. Also, you want to be able to turn your handlebars. Now Ciro does provide you with enough length if you want to pull your wiring all the way up. So if you decide to change from a perch mount to a clamp mount, it's easier to take your instrument bezel off than it is your tank. You can just take that wiring and tuck it into here. So now I'll lift this top caddy or battery cover. You have these two screws in the back and they're a 1/2 inch. Now you can pop your ECM off to get this out of the way. Now that I have everything out of the way, I'll disconnect the negative first and then the positive. So like I said, Ciro provides you with enough wiring, so I'll pull this extra slack towards the front and I'll connect my positive first and then my negative. I'll start my screw and then I'll just take this and slide it under here. And when tightening these down, you don't want to over tighten. And what's great about this wiring is that there's an inline fuse. Now before I reinstall everything, I'm gonna connect the cybercharger just to make sure that it works. So I'll be doing the clamp mount, but like I said before, Ciro does have the perch mount, the mirror ball mount, and the fairing mount. So here I have the clamp mount, just has this pin on the bottom, just goes into here and it rotates up. Then you have your screw, which already has blue Loctite on it. Then you have your ball mount that screws into here. And to tighten this down, it's a 3/16 hex bit. So if you look at the bottom of the ball mount, there's a flat edge. That's gonna help you tighten it down. So I do have the 14-inch factory 47 signature bars, and these are 1.5 inches. So I'll get the ball mount to thread in first, and then I'll put some pressure on it and tighten it down from the other side. So on the bottom of the cybercharger, you have this screw. You take this screw out if you want to adjust the feet. And on the bottom of the cybercharger is where you're going to plug it in. So you have a nut on the back. You just remove this. You slide it over your ball mount. You take your cybercharger. You slide your ball into there. And then just tighten it down. So you can either have it in landscape mode or portrait mode. And then you have your clamping lever here. You twist this counterclockwise for it to come out. Once you get the desired width, you put your phone inside of there, and then you can tighten it down where it's touching. And once it touches your phone, you just clamp it down and it just gives you that extra grip. So now I'll just connect the main fuse and turn the bike on to make sure that it works. Now that I tested it and everything works, I'll secure my wire and button it up. Now the only thing I'm surprised about that Ciro didn't provide was some zip ties. Now I have plenty from previous installs, so I'm good to go. Now here it's labeled black and it's labeled gray. I'll reinstall the top caddy screws and it's calling for 72 to 96 inch-pounds. Now I'll reinstall the tank, and for all 4 screws, it's calling for 15 to 20 foot-pounds. Now I'll loosely install these 2 back screws until I get the 2 front screws in. And don't forget to reinstall your covers. Now I'll reconnect the left vent hose and route the other one. And don't forget to reconnect your connector. And now I'll reconnect the fuel line and insert the main fuse. Now I'll reinstall the instrument bezel. You have your right connector that's feeding from the right, your left connector is feeding from the left, and then you have your center connector. There's a notch on the bottom, so when you install it, it's going to be facing towards the bottom. Now just remember, on the right side connector, the retention clip is on the bottom. So I'll get the 2 Torx screws finger started, and then I'll tighten them down. And now I'll reinstall the ignition switch cover. Now for the measurements on the Cybercharger, all the way closed, you won't be able to latch this down, but all the way closed, you're looking at approximately 2.5 inches. Now all the way open, before this completely separates and latched down, you're looking at approximately 4 inches. Now for the Cybercharger harness or power cable, I do wish it had some type of cap with a little strap. That way, when this is not in use and I have this off the bike, I had some way to cover this up just to keep it protected. Now I did purchase some caps on Amazon. It just slides over the connector. That way it keeps it protected when this is not in use. Now I do hope in the future that Ciro3D does upgrade this connector to maybe a USB-C. That way if I wanted to use my GoPro and charge it, I can do that as well. Now something that could work with this connector is finding an adapter that goes from DC to USB-C. Now this one doesn't fit this connector, but I'm sure there's some on Amazon that actually fit. So you can remove this bottom piece on the perch mount. It's just a screw. I used a 5/32 hex bit, and you have a washer. You don't have to remove it all the way, you can just loosen it. You do have some teeth on the top, and that allows for some adjustability. Alright guys, so that wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm definitely a huge fan of this Cybercharger. I've never been a huge fan of mounting stuff on my handlebars, but now with GoPros and filming for YouTube, at this point it doesn't really matter. But I do like the fact that this is completely wireless. I do wish they had the USB-C type of connector. That way if I wanted to move my GoPro down and charge it here, I could do that as well. But I'm sure I can find a connector that can go from a DC to a USB-C type. So either way, definitely a huge fan of this. I like being able to charge my phone. It sets in here, it doesn't shake around, sets firmly into place, and it's all one-handed operation. So you can do it in portrait mode, or you can keep it in landscape mode. Great for navigation if you don't want to use your Boom GTS, or if you don't have a navigation. But either way guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll see you on the next one.